Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com. Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Microcasting for your city. Talkopolis.
And welcome back, everybody, to Pit Pass. Joe Williams, Larry Woody, and our special guest, Russ Thompson. And Russ, when we left, we started the conversation, and this one's going to be a long one too before we're done, about open wheel cars. Let me start there. Open wheel Indianapolis type cars, so that you can tell me exactly what I'm supposed to call them.
It's the IZOD IndyCar series.
Okay.
I mean,
did you get that, Larry, so that we can type this out right?
And 3 years ago, honestly, they made the mandate: do not call it the IRL anymore.
Okay.
These are Indy cars. And IndyCar is just like NASCAR, and then they have different divisions. They have a ladder series. They have an Indy Lights division. They have the Mazda series. They have, where you can work your way up.
4 cars and 2 cars, yes.
Right, but it's all sanctioned by IndyCar, which is all caps. And then the main series, the IZOD IndyCar series, is capital I, capital C, IndyCar.
So when they started racing here, it used to be the Indy Racing League.
Right.
That was the name
IRL,
of the series,
sure.
like NASCAR.
Right.
And then you had the IZOD series, and then you had what was the second tier series?
Some kind of light, Indy
Lights.
Lights. It was
Indy Lights.
Yeah.
But it was all under the Indy Racing League, and now you don't have an actual Indy Racing League. It's the Indy
Racing League is more like NASCAR.
Yeah.
So, Larry asked a pretty good question there. When Nashville Super Speedway opened, and they announced, hey, we're going to bring an open wheel race to Middle Tennessee. Russ, you and I have had this conversation for 25 years to that point. I actually used that term one night on a radio show, ground sucking widowmakers, and he calls me, he says, you're out of your mind. I can't believe you did that. But that's about what they appeared to be. What marketing geniuses, say what you want to about the group. Marketing wise, they've been geniuses because they came into Middle Tennessee and just won over the population, the race fans, and media people, most of whom said never ever.
Right.
And you predicted it, Russ. I think we had this conversation because I was skeptical, and you said no. Once area fans get a look at them, up close look, can feel them, hear them, smell them, and everything else, they'll like it. And you were right, weren't you?
Well, I mean, the speed is one thing. I mean, gosh, we could go to Nashville Super Speedway and see race cars running laps at an average speed of over 200 miles an hour. I mean, that's still pretty impressive. And when you walk down as low as you can go in the grandstands and you see the car come by at 200 miles an hour,
yes,
it'll
scare you.
It will, yeah.
It will scare you.
It will.
And also the timing was fortuitous from the personality standpoint because you had Ms. Patrick making a splash in Indy, the most celebrated probably professional athlete in the country at the time, and she was coming to Gladeville to race. Yeah. You had Elio Castroneves, glamorous guy, everybody knew Elio. You had
even before dancing.
Even before dancing, before he started dancing. You had all those other
and
great
Dario,
personalities.
I mean, we had the local time with Dario.
Local angle with
Tony Kanaan was good.
All those guys were
forget
great.
who Malcolm and I made a Bubba out of somebody, and you remember that? He actually kept it in his trailer.
Giaffoni.
That's it. It was Giaffoni.
Sure was. Bubba Giaffoni.
Yeah, and can't have Malcolm West, who will be our guest next week, says you can't have a race in Middle Tennessee without a Bubba. So we just picked Giaffoni because we liked the name Giaffoni. Well, little official certificate. Year later, he comes. It's still in his trailer. You know, he's like, "Look, I'm still an official Bubba."
But you had A.J. Foyt wandering
Yeah.
around, limping around in the garage in his cowboy boots. You had the famous Andretti clan in the infield still racing, and uncles and grandpas and everybody around. It was something that appealed to the media tremendously, and then I think the media appeal spread to the fans. We started writing about all these great people, how easy they were to work with, just a pleasure to work with compared to some of the NASCAR guys that were undergoing the transition into the PR area at that point. So it was just a great win-win relationship, and that's why, Russ, I was puzzled after the 2008 season when Indy packed up its little open wheel cars and left.
And I still am.
Well, but that was, if you look, you have a better idea. My impression of the history of open wheel cars, though, is that's not unusual. That's kind of their modus operandi. They come in, things look great, and then all of a sudden, well, we are great, and then it's, you know, I really took the way they left Nashville as Indianapolis sending a signal, something along the lines of a red hot poker. Now, part of what happened to Larry before that, there were actually two open wheel groups. One was the leftover of the old Champ cars, or what was left of it, the Indy cars that Tony George had created and had survived with and made successful, saying we're just going to race on ovals.
Right.
Well, when they merged back together, they wanted more road courses, which in my mind, if you look at where they are now, kind of shows that is not the direction they needed to go. Nashville was an oval, they needed to get rid of it. And so rather than just saying we're not coming back to Nashville, quite honestly, my understanding is that they jacked the fees up so high that it became virtually impossible to be affordable to run in Nashville.
For a track that size.
Yeah. But Russ, if you go back and look, USAC, CART, Champ, all of these open wheel series wind up with 3 or 4 or 5 owners of 3 or 4 or 5 teams, Larry, and when they get unhappy, they just go. They take their ball and go play somewhere else. I mean, is that fair?
Goes home.
That's really not too far off the mark. And the merger, you're right, the merger was a part of it. I mean, 2008 was the first year of the merger, but it happened early in the calendar year, so basically the schedule was already set. The IndyCar schedule was already set, and the next year they had to basically combine the IndyCar and Champ Car schedules into one. And you know, in 08 they didn't go to Toronto. In 09 they went back to Toronto. I mean, they had some you know, historic races on the Champ Car circuit that they needed to merge in with the IndyCar, and Nashville, I think, was a victim of that.
Russ, I think something intriguing this year is going to be the Indy doubleheaders. We're talking about off camera. I think is it 4 weekends when the IndyCar series is going to run two races at the same track on one weekend. What was it? Friday, Sunday,
Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday, Sunday. So back-to-back races.
Right.
Is that going to? How's that going to work, ticket-wise, or do they care about tickets? Is it more of a made-for-TV event?
No, I think that's the reason they're doing it. They're doing it at. They're doing it at Detroit. I should know this. I think they're doing it at Sonoma and a couple of others. The thing is, if you're a race fan and you're paying to go, now you're going to get double the bang for your buck.
And you're already there.
So
you're already there. I guess
covers both events.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard that. I don't know what the ticket deal is going to be. But you've got one travel expense, and you're going to get 2 races.
I was just saying, the courage to go to Detroit to sell tickets at this point in time. I mean, that's
no. I can see
courageous.
pluses and minuses. Like you say, the travel factors there. You bought your plane ticket or spent your gas for your car. You got your hotel room. It's just a matter of keeping it one more night. So from that standpoint, I guess what I was looking at was how much is too much. But you're right. Racing fans, if you ran 2 Cup races back to back, the race fans would stay over and watch them, I'm sure.
That is an old Bob Harmon move.
Yeah.
Quite honestly,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a short. I mean, it's an old short track move, and I kind of applaud them for taking that risk to see what happens.
Sure. I mean, try it and see. They did double headers back in the 60s at places like Michigan and Texas, and it worked there. And when I was a teenager, first time I ever went to the Formula One race at Watkins Glen, the main reason we went was because they was running USAC Silver Crown Dirt Race in Syracuse the day before. We got to do 2 races on a New York trip for the price of 1 trip.
Yep.
So that's basically was the selling point. Well, yeah, we'll go if we can get 2 big races in 1 week.
If it works, NASCAR will steal it. You know that.
Well, and say they invented it. Yeah.
But I want to say it's really no
Yeah.
different than what NASCAR does.
Yeah.
You know, we get Friday, we get trucks. Saturday, you get nationwide. Sunday, you get the Cup guys. Well, you make 1 trip, you get 3 races. Unfortunately, to make that 1 trip to get 3 races, by the time you buy 3 tickets, you're broke.
Right.
And it's tempting to say the NASCAR races would be too grueling or longer, tougher, maybe more physical. But then in the old days, we'd see drivers like Bush. He'd run the truck race one night,
Yep.
the nationwide race the next day, and the Cup race the next day. So I never really bought into that. It's too grueling and too grinding. I think they'd race 7 days a week if somebody would put them on the track.
And Bobby Allison and Ken Schrader
Same thing.
would. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Russ, you spent a great deal of time working with the folks at the Indianapolis 500. You've spent a great deal of time with the open wheel cars. One of the things that has made NASCAR stable over the years is, like it or not, the key has been there's always been that one I am. And the I wannabes around were all family,
Right.
either by blood or by philosophy. There has never been that kind of strength in the open wheel field. Will there ever be? To where there's going to be, you know, is Tony George going to be the Bill France Jr.
I don't
that
think
will pull everything together and keep it there?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he's pretty much had his shot at it, and it didn't work out, and that's why the IndyCar part of the sport's in the shape it's in now.
Who's next? Who's the next one to get a shot at? Who can do it?
That's a good question. They're undergoing a search right now. They have a Boston consulting company that is searching for the next guy on the top rung of the ladder.
I think a lot of the IndyCar problems and failures, frankly, can be traced directly to Tony George's doorstep, office door. I think when they raced out here, there's a lot of problems. I remember I tried for 5 or 6 years to get an interview with him. He was always too busy. You could go to Daytona, walk up to Bill France Jr. or Sr.'s door, tell the secretary who you were, and he'd wave you in. And it was that easy. You didn't have to make an appointment. You just show up, and if Mr. the old man or Bill Jr. were in there, you were in. And what can it do for you? Sit down, put his feet up, and talk as long as you was talking. Tony George never could get past 2 or 3 layers of PR people. And I thought then this might be a problem, and sure enough, I think it is. And it's not just me, a media person, complaining about how hard his job is. As you travel around and you talk to people and you read about people with other experiences, Tony George is the one common denominator that comes up when you talk about open wheel racing's problems.
Got to get through 2 or 3 layers of PR people to talk to him. You're talking about Tony George or a Cup driver.
Yeah.
Tell you
And whose league is maybe literally at one point dying from lack of exposure, and you can't get through to
No,
him
you
to
can't get him.
talk about his league.
That's kind of the way I feel about the Nashville deal, but we'll let that go for right now. When we come back, we're going to talk some about where NASCAR and open wheels mesh at Indianapolis, and also a little bit more about Daytona. Get Russ's thoughts on the new Gen 6 car, 6th generation Cup car. Yeah, okay. Probably if they needed some work on that Gen 6 car, some of them would eventually call USA Motor and Machine over on Cleveland Avenue to get it done. If you want it done and done right, call our friends at USA Motor and Machine over on Cleveland. We'll come back to wrap up this edition of Pit Pass right after this.
Should have brought my poster of the 6th generation.